Okay, this is grammar lesson number 21, recommendation statements. This is our last grammar lesson for chapter 14, so make sure you understand it. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me via Edmodo or via email or in person. Okay, ただどうですか?ただどうですか goes after a verb and it conveys a piece of advice or a recommendation. So you're suggesting something that the other person should do. So it translates usually why don't you or how about. Okay, here's an example. How about you get married with Mika? Mika-san to kekkon shitara dou desu ka? So obviously if you take a look right here, okay, kekkon shi, that looks like the stem right there, but we'll take a look a little bit further to figure out how you would conjugate these. Now, the initial ta in tara dou desu ka, this character right here, is for the last character in the past affirmative short form for verbs. So let's take a look at some of these. Asobu, to play. So the asonda. So this one, if you put this in the phrase, it'll be asonda la dou desu ka? Migaku would be migaita. So migaita ra dou desu ka? Anda it comes from amu. So once again, the da goes for this one right here. Now, when conjugate these sentences, please make sure you understand that you will only be able to compose affirmative recommendations. So you cannot say you should not, right? Why don't you not do something? That's not a recommendation at the point. Okay, so keep that in mind. So you should exercise, that's an appropriate way to make a sentence, but you shouldn't exercise will not be a good one. Okay, so you can also shorten tara do desu ka because that's pretty long into so tara do, so you're just cutting it off with just the first part, or tara. Okay, that's this is pretty extreme, but Japanese people still understand it if you just end it with tara because it implies that you're going to finish it off by saying tara do, so you just shorten it. Both of these are used in casual speech alongside short form. So you don't typically see these in a formal situation. They're only when you are using them for short form. Okay, let's try these examples. Why don't you give up? How about going out today? Now, this don't is it's not a negative. Keep that in mind. It's suggesting that you should or you ought to. Okay, so don't try to write the negative of this. Okay, this is the phrase that is どうですか?ただどうですか? Okay, so why don't you give up? How about going out today? Why don't you send a present to everyone? Okay, so the first one is why don't you give up? 諦めたらどうですか? Now, also keep in mind a lot of these the word you is assumed because when you say this, it's automatically assumed that you are saying it to another person. Okay, now you would not. Yeah, so I digress. Okay, so how about going out today? 今日出かけたらどうですか? Why don't you send a present to everyone? So we want to start with everyone. 皆さんにプレゼントを送ったらどうですか? Okay, don't forget present. Excuse me, not present. Past affirmative short form is what you want to use when you do these. Okay, now when you're using this, you do need to keep in mind something. ただどうですか? It does convey a little bit of a critical tone. Now, why is that? It's that you are telling them to do something, so you're kind of pointing out the fact that they're not completing something already, and that they need to do it right now because of that. So even though you might just be offering a piece of advice, it comes off as, hey, I think you should do your homework. That might convey that you don't do anything at all on a regular basis. So here's another example, another reason why. Instead, you may choose to use 方がいいです. So it's better for you to do because this one actually gives a little bit less of a critical tone. You're saying, oh, why don't you try this instead? Okay. 方がいいです. ただどうですか just says you need to do this because you're not doing this. Now, don't use ただどうです unless you have been asked for a recommendation. There should be a call right here, but ただどうですか is a recommendation, but you should only use it unless you have been asked for that kind of advice. Okay, now, and unlike in English, you cannot use this as an invitation. So you can't say like, why don't you come to my house? Okay, that's incorrect. うちに来たらどうですか? Okay. Now, in this case, you are going to use masenka. We learned this in Japanese one. I know it's been a long time, but that's what you would use. Why don't you come to my house? Uchi ni kimasenka. This is more of an invitation. This is not. Okay. Okay, now let's take a look. Questions. How about you walk to the park? Why don't you quit your job? Why don't you tell a lie? Said Mika. Now, this question mark should probably go here, and this should be up here. So, why don't you tell a lie? Said Mika. How about you clean your room and own 3 dogs? Okay, so I did mix in a quoted speech, and then this one right here is a compound sentence. So keep that in mind. Okay. Just make sure you take a look at all of your previous grammar lessons and you are studying away. Go ahead and go through all the vocab, all the verbs, all the adjective. We just learned them, so it shouldn't be an issue, but make sure you look through everything and make sure you study through your kanji for this upcoming test.